NFL decision makers don't believe Dak Prescott is a top 14 quarterback. What? We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, you're actually going to be off the next couple of days, so we've got some special shows coming up. You're taking a much-needed vacation, so I'm very jealous, by the way. But you'll be back as we get closer and closer to Cowboys training camp, which I believe starts what, next Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah, so it starts. I'll be back on the first day of official training camp, which I think is Monday. And then I'll be actually going out to training camp starting on the 27th, which is exciting.
And make sure that you're following us on YouTube. There'll be shorts from training camp. Go check out the TikTok channel because Landon's going to be doing some exclusive videos on the TikTok from that channel as well. But on today's show, we're going to talk about some of the newsier items coming out about the Cowboys over the last couple of days, including these listicles. So listen, I get it. We're middle of July, excuse me. Content is slow right now, so everybody comes up with these lists to try to drive traffic. Well, we got one from ESPN, their annual NFL executives, decision makers, coaches, scouts. They ranked the top players in the league, and on Monday they ranked quarterbacks. Landon, and Dak Prescott was the 15th ranked quarterback on the list. Last year he was inside the top 10. Now he's outside of the top 14. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think we've seen a lot of these lists before, and there always is something on there that's, offensive to our senses, it feels like. Look, Dak had a down year last year, was obviously injured, but again, this is obviously disrespectful for a guy that when healthy, was an MVP, front runner 2 years ago. Like he hasn't fallen. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't fallen so far off that he's, barely clearing the top half of quarterbacks in this group. So I understand that there's a lot of young guys with promise that, I think a lot of guys that are pontificators on the position are excited about. And I think it's easy right around now to kind of put those guys, in Dak over Dak, in this situation where he's coming off an off season and, things didn't look great last year. But I mean, Dak Prescott has been consistently a top 6 quarterback the last 5 years coming into the season. I don't think that I've seen enough to make me knock him off a healthy version of him off of that kind of, I don't know if it's a pedestal. It's not even a super high bar to clear for him. So I this is why it's shocking to kind of see him, with such low expectations thrust upon him.
Yeah. We should also mention that the standard for a Dallas Cowboy quarterback is just higher than the standard across the NFL. And I don't want to diss any of these other quarterbacks that are ranked ahead of him to prop up Dak, but I will in this case because why not? Well, Baker Mayfield, I like Baker. Baker's a lot of fun. I think he deserves a lot of credit for turning his career around, but he's feasted on some pretty bad competition in the NFC South. They're barely winning that division. Remember, that division was up in the air for most of the year, and he puts up a lot of yards. He also led the NFL in turnovers over the last 2 years, and it's whatever. Again, Baker's done a really good job of turning his career around. Is he a better quarterback than Dak Prescott? No, we saw it in a game last year against Dallas, in a must-win game for Tampa Bay. He kind of got outplayed by Cooper Rush. And that happens far more often than you would think. I think a lot of it is just the injury. If Dak were healthy and if he played 16, 17 games, he's not being ranked as the 15th quarterback in the list, which is why we shouldn't care about these all that much.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, look, these NFL executives, they depending on who they are, they may or may not have a high level of insight on these guys. Some of them are more player watchers than others, right? And I think that with Dak, appreciating him comes with having to like understand what he's doing versus what other quarterbacks are being do in their offense. And I think Dak, is in charge of everything, up until when the snap of the play goes. I mean, he gets the play call, but the freedom that he has that comes with the command that he has over the offense is unique. It's not something that a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL have. So I think it's a tough comparison when sometimes people are just watching results versus understanding kind of like, what Dak is having to do snap in, snap out for his offense versus a guy that's being, puppeted by a super, hands-on offensive coordinator that may just basically be doing everything for him up until he throws the ball.
And remember, like coaches, let's use them because I think Jeremy Fowler said they interviewed more coaches than executives and scouts. What is the job of a coach? Is to make his players play better and get them ready for game day. A Dallas Cowboy offensive line coach probably isn't watching cornerbacks for the New York Jets all that closely in season. And I got to believe he's not doing that in the offseason as well. And yet he's probably voting on who are the top 10 corners in the league. So I think it's a good article because you are getting the opinions of NFL people. But just remember, even NFL people don't have a lot of time to evaluate players beyond the ones that are on their team.
Yeah, they tend to get myopic because they have to be experts on the things that they need to be experts on, not the entirety of the league at every single position.
I wish Glenn Stretch Smith was on the show because we could be debating why is Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in the league being ranked 15th. But that's for the squad show. I'll draw him off sides on Thursday. Don't you guys worry. I do it.
Glenn, if you're watching, call in, please.
Yeah,
buddy.
I know. I can't wait. All right. So overall thoughts. We don't care about this too much. It's just not that big of a deal.
I think it's a tough exercise to even ask somebody to rank players like this because there's so much disparity in what you're being asked to do, scheme to scheme, head coach to head coach, and offensive and defensive coordinator to offensive and defensive coordinator. So, I don't envy the people that make these lists in the first place, but I also don't put in a lot of merit because it's not an easy thing to do.
I would also say I think there's a clear top 4 at the quarterback position right now: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and you can rank those guys however you want to. But from 5 to 12, it's all kind of like, what do you value in your quarterbacks? Believe it or not, there's still some coaches, executives that believe that quarterback wins are a real thing. So you might see someone like Jalen Hurts higher on the list, or if you really value arm strength, Justin Herbert might be the QB5 and Matt Stafford might be QB6. These are just generally an exercise of what do you value at the quarterback position? Do you value the guys that are more game managers but win a lot of games, or the guys that have more talent? It's why we should read these but not completely put all of our stock into them as well.
Yeah, half of it's basically just a semantics argument, like what do you value as the best quarterback? And then that obviously bleeds into your evaluation as well.
All right, let's talk about things that actually matter, including Micah Parsons' contract. What's going on? What is the latest update? We got one from Albert Breer that we will dive into next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories and enjoying the show and not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. But that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever before. Prices actually drop as the closer we get to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off their killer last-minute deals. One of my favorite things in the app is that you can get a panoramic seat view in the app before you buy. It's awesome to know exactly what your seats are going to look like. Plus, you can also take just the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Let's discuss Micah Parsons' contract situation. Still no deal. We're here on July 15th. We're just a couple of weeks, a week away from practices actually starting. Albert Breer said that Micah's new deal is going to start with a 4, so over $40 million a year, and that he's probably going to get at least $100 million guaranteed. And more importantly, it's going to be a 4-year deal. None of this should be surprising, though, right?
No, I mean, I think all of that, and that's what kind of again leads more credence to the idea that this deal has been kind of been in place for a long time, right? And that these numbers have been all hammered out. So, I don't think that any of that is surprising. And honestly, to me, it doesn't even seem newsworthy or report worthy because it's like basically what everyone has heard and everyone's already assumed is the case. So yeah, it's kind of a non-update in some ways. And that's not like necessarily like a slide on Breer or anything, but I just feel like it's just kind of reiterating things that maybe we've already pieced together, disparately in different situations over these last few months. And again, like the more it sounds like the same parameters that we've heard for the last 3 months, the more I kind of point to the hypothetical scenario where Jerry and Micah hammered this out a long time ago, and suddenly, like, this deal just didn't get signed once the agent's name got involved for one reason or another. I don't know if that's a Jerry thing or if that's an agent thing, but for one reason or another, once the agent was brought into the situation, somebody pushed away from it.
There just doesn't seem like there's a lot of wiggle room here. Like, okay, maybe Micah makes $41 million, or maybe he makes $41.5 million. Maybe he gets $120 million in guarantees, or maybe he gets $122. Like, it just doesn't seem like they're haggling over that much. I think there was maybe a push from the Cowboys. I'm sure there was, to get him on a 5-year deal so they could stretch that money out a little bit. But after Myles Garrett got a 4-year deal, and I think after the Steelers and TJ Watt have been discussing a 4-year deal, that probably went out the window a little bit. So I'm kind of with you. Like, I think this can be done at any minute. It's just, when does it officially get done? Does it get done this week? Does it get done 2 weeks into training camp? Who knows? But I'm just not stressing about it.
Yeah, I mean, but like if they announce it on the opening day of training camp or whatever, I'm gonna even feel even more that this was a optics driven timing of the signing. Let's say that. That's what I'll call it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say the first day, because I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry wants that to be his day, because he gets to get up in Oxnard.
Yeah,
Oxnard,
exactly.
As he
Yeah.
says. And then it's like the first day of padded practice is when that gets announced or whatever. We saw CeeDee Lamb's deal get done early into training camp. I would assume it's the same.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't imagine that it's going to take very long. I mean, again, all these numbers have been in place, so this feels like what is the driving factor? It feels like it's just putting pen to paper, honestly.
Yeah. So I actually looked it up. CeeDee Lamb signed his on August 26th, so he did miss a little bit of training camp. I don't expect it to be that long for Micah.
Yeah, just because the trajectory has been like it's plateaued, whereas CD, like, it felt contentious, going into camp. Like with that situation, it doesn't feel that way at all with the Micah Jerry situation. Like, I just don't feel like it's gonna bleed into it. It feels like both sides are in control of a narrative, as opposed to two sides in a Cold War, facing off with each other, like it did with CD last year.
One more contract thing before we move on.
Yeah.
Tyler Smith is eligible for a deal Daron Bland is eligible for a deal. So is Jake Ferguson. But we really haven't heard any update on any of those guys. I would assume Tyler Smith is the next in line,
Mm-hmm.
but the Cowboys do have the 5th-year option, right? So they can have him play out the entire 2025 season and then have him play on that 5th-year option. It's just, I'm sure they're going to go through the same song and dance that we've done for every one of these guys, but I wonder if they should they should get that deal done. I don't know why they're waiting so long now.
The Tyler Smith one for sure.
Yeah.
The other guys, it feels like, they're both in situations where you've got scenarios around them that you kind of feel like you need to figure out a little bit, right?
I'm
like,
okay with them waiting on those two, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Jake Ferguson and Daron
Ferguson, I want to see. Yeah, Ferguson, I want to see, play another year before I feel comfortable paying him anything. And Bland, it's like you kind of want to figure out where Trayvon Diggs is before you sign him, because you're gonna have to sign him to a pretty decently sized deal. And if you're gonna do that, you may think about it, maybe in a reaction to exactly where Trayvon Diggs is, because you've got an opportunity to get out of that situation if you want to.
I also wonder, and we've talked about this before with Bland, he's one of the few players where it's actually going to hurt your salary cap right away to sign him to a new deal, because he's making nothing right now. But I wonder if the Cowboys are hoping that they could maybe use the franchise tag on Daron Bland, which would be about $21.7 million next year. That would just kind of buy them some more time to figure out what they do. The bigger point is I just don't see either of those guys getting a deal done right now. And I think George Pickens is the same way. They want to see what happens with George Pickens this year before they give him any kind of deal.
Yeah, and they have to find a way to fit all those deals kind of together, because as we go along, Dak's deal is going to become more and more of a juggernaut to kind of work around.
Yes, and Coach Smith will tell you that it's going to be a big problem.
Call him, Coach.
I'm trying to get him all upset. That's okay. All right, let's talk about training camp. Who is one player, and we'll say sleeper, who is one sleeper on the Cowboys who could completely change the outlook and the vibes around this team going into week 1? We'll discuss that and more next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today show. We've got the Locked On NFL Top 100 that's coming out on Wednesday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the Locked On NFL host, and there's some pretty shocking rankings, so you guys are going to want to make sure you tune in for that. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to the Locked On Sports Today podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about some sleepers. Who is one sleeper in your mind, Landon, that if they have a really strong camp, could completely change the outlook of this team this season?
So for me, I like to find sleepers where we know that there was talent at some point. We've seen talent, but for one reason or another, that has been obfuscated. Like, it's been hard to see it, or they've been dealing with an injury. And this is a guy that's, I think, a little bit of all that. And what if we get to camp and Javonte Williams really looks like, the rookie version of Javonte Williams, on a further trajectory? Like, I think that could really change the outlook of this offense in general if they actually could solidify the big back, portion of their running back by committee to the point where maybe even you felt comfortable as him kind of focused as the primary back early while you get some of these younger guys going a little bit more. I think he's a guy that has shown that he can handle the load as a receiver and as a runner. It's just that he hasn't been dynamic the last 2 years since coming off of his ACL injury. Maybe a change in scenery, a new coaching staff that's using him differently, and another year removed from what was a pretty nasty knee injury gives him a purpose, a little bit better health, a little bit better burst, and the opportunity to kind of revive what has been just a little bit of a sluggish career for the last 2 years. But maybe a change in scenery, a year closer to health, it changes all the angles for him, and then thereby the Cowboys run game and the Cowboys offense.
Yeah, so I'm going the same position, although I don't necessarily think running backs matter. I don't know if we talked about this before on the
Hmm.
show, but
Oh,
I
interesting.
do think if Jaden Blue comes right in and like wins this running back job, and there's going to be a veteran that plays with him, no matter how well he plays in training camp, because they're going to want that veteran to be the pass blocker, the between the tackle guy. But I look at somebody like Bucky Irving, who was pick
Yeah.
125 last year. He's another one of these like sub 200-pound backs that a lot of people thought needed to be a part-time player. And Bucky Irving comes right in for Tampa Bay and is their RB1, has over 1,100 yards from scrimmage. It was awesome. And the thing is, we have lots of examples of day 3 running backs coming in and playing a role right away, whether that's Tyler Algier with the Falcons, Kyron Williams, Damian Pierce during his rookie season with Houston. I mean, we can go on and on. I think if the Cowboys had Jaden Blue and he's everything that we maybe hope that he could be, now we're talking about one of the most explosive offenses in the league. 2 dynamic receivers, a guy out of the backfield that can hit home runs, a reliable tight end in Jake Ferguson. I think we're talking about the offense maybe hitting a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when people have looked at this offense and kind of prognosticated about this potential future, right? Like they say they look at the big hole of the running back position and they say, well, oh well, the running backs, right? No. And I think that's still a holdup for a lot of folks, right? And I think if you can get either one of these guys, and man, imagine if both of them did have like kind of an explosive, overwhelming training camp into the early regular season. I think it changes completely how you feel about this offense. And suddenly you're talking about a group that potentially could be, top 7 offense. I mean,
Sure.
I don't think that's
Maybe even better.
unrealistic. Yeah, maybe even better. I think, with this passing attack, by the end of the year, I mean, this team has been a top 5 offense before. Why couldn't they be there like that now? I mean, I think the talent is distributed differently than it was, in 2023 or 2022 when they, had some really high flying offenses. But I still think that there's the same quarterback, the same kind of, core passing attack. It's just morphed a little bit. And I think it lines up really well with the way that a lot of modern offenses are going, with a little bit more balance in it if they can get the running backs going early.
All right, one more guy that I wanted to mention. This is not for the 2025 outlook, although maybe it could be. What if Joe Milton comes in and has a fantastic training camp in preseason? What if he just lights up preseason the way that like Dak Prescott did in 2016, where we weren't discussing whether Dak should beat out Tony Romo after his awesome preseason. Now, obviously, once Romo got hurt, it changed things. But I think after that Dolphin preseason game, which I think was week 2, I believe, we felt like, okay, there's something here, right? And if he gets a shot, maybe they could win some games. What if Milton does the same? What if Milton comes in and is just absolutely fantastic? Maybe that would give you some hope that they have an exit plan if Dak Prescott can't stay healthy or struggles. I'm going to be watching Joe Milton very closely this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you keep taking swings with these guys. And I think in a modern NFL, like, look at who the best quarterbacks, like, there's, like you just said, there's an undisputed top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL, right? 3 of them are, freaks of nature, like, and I think that's kind of what it requires. So if you're looking to, move on at a certain point and take the next step, you've got a guy who has that kind of physical tool set. It's about getting the processing and the, operating a modern offense aspect of it that, that he still has to learn a little bit. But if he can, and you can unlock that tool set, you have an opportunity to be in striking distance of those guys, which is, usually a rare thing and a hard thing to get a hold of. And you usually don't get to unless you draft them in the first round.
And the reason why this feels different compared to like Trey Lance last year is because of the contract, right? Like Milton, if he has a really strong preseason but doesn't play at all this year, you still have 2 more years of him under contract. Whereas Trey Lance, at the same time last year, we were thinking, okay, he needs to show enough to prove that he could eventually be the backup quarterback in Dallas, right? Like show that you can maybe beat out Cooper Rush long term. That didn't happen. In fact, I think we came away from preseason last year thinking, there's a pretty big gap between Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. I remember that was it the week 3 preseason game where they let him play the whole game. And he had like 500 yards of offense, but he had so many turnovers where it just felt like, okay, he's not ready. If Milton has a strong preseason, I think the vibes are going to be completely different.
I think he's starting from a different place too, right? Yeah. I mean, just that's what helps is I think it's just not such a long-term project with him. You've already seen him get into an NFL regular season game. I'm using air quotes for our podcast listeners because it really was the backups that he was playing against, but still it was a NFL regular season. That's as good as any preseason game that you're going to see. And he performed extremely well. So yeah, like I think you're starting at a different level than you were with Lance, which is helpful. And right now, like he's at that level where you're hoping that he could be a backup quarterback, but the ceiling is, man, if he gets it, like again, it's not just like starting quarterback. It's like his ceiling is way beyond that. And I think that's why you love the opportunity you get with a guy like this on a long-term contract, because man, if it hits, you really got something.
And I think the fact that Dak has missed so much time, if Milton were to be the backup quarterback, he at least gives you some hope. And I think Cooper Rush did a really good job being a backup quarterback for Dallas over the last several years, but you never gave you the illusion that he could be the quarterback of the future. Milton's probably not going to be, but there is part of you that wonders if he could eventually be it. And I think that's why it's going to be at least exciting to watch during the preseason. That's all.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.